Principles of management. Now when we talk about this chapter is incomplete. This chapter cannot even begin without talking about the two main people. Who are those two revolutionary people? First is the F.W. Taylor, Frederick Winslow Taylor. Frederick Winslow Taylor. So first person is F.W. Taylor. He is known as the father of scientific management. He is known as the father of the scientific management. That is your Taylor, F.W. Taylor, father of scientific management. Then when you talk about the next person, that is, कोई बता सकता है? That is Henry Fayol. He is known as father of general management. Father of general management. Okay, so this chapter we have to of course study the principles. So Taylor has given 4 principles of management and Henry Fayol has given 14. So these are the 18 principles that we have to study, and apart from that Taylor has also given 4 techniques of management, 4 techniques of scientific management. That is also we have to cover. So 18 things तो ये हो गई. Apart from that, we have to see the nature and characteristics. Then we have to see how principles are different from values. So these are the things that we will cover in this chapter, right? So the first 2 things, please remember that we're talking about 2 people, Taylor and Fayol. Taylor was the father of scientific management and Fayol was father of general management. पहले बताओ ये चीज क्लियर हुई है नहीं? अब बात आती है, now what is the meaning of this word principles of management? What is the meaning of this word principle of management or a managerial principle? Managerial principle. What is this word all about? Principle of management or managerial principle. So it is, these are just a broad or general guidelines. So these principles are broad, or you can say general guidelines. These are broad or general guidelines that help the managers in decision making. कि decision making में managers की help करने के लिए ये guidelines है, ठीक है? They are not rigid rules, they are just general guidelines, okay? So that the manager could be helped, right? So that is the basic meaning of the managerial principle. You have to remember this. In CUET they can ask you. Now general guidelines for managerial decision making and organizational behavior. ये क्या है? सिर्फ एक general guidelines है. So main point, key word here is the general guidelines. General guidelines for managerial decision making, right? Aim to improve efficiency, discipline and coordination in an organization. Aim क्या है इसका? The aim of principles are to improve the efficiency in the organization, discipline in the organization and coordination in the organization. We have already studied efficiency and coordination, yes, in detail. So this is what the principles try to help in those particular aspects. Okay, so again you can see this. Okay, and these principles याद रखना है, these principles are not as rigid as science. Now scientific principles are very rigid, right? If Newton's first law is whatever it says, it is, right? But if you try to read a principle and you try to exactly copy paste that, so maybe in your organization that principle won't work because of what? Because of the human element, and every human is different. So because of the human behavior, management principles are not as rigid as science. Okay, so that is the reason. Because human behavior, you can write the reason. Just a second, guys. Okay. Because I think this is too light. 1 second. Because human behavior is not static. कोई human भी सबका सब human same नहीं होते. So it depends. If you are applying a management principle, so you have to change it as a manager. You have to change it according to the situation. If you change it according to the situation, then you can say that yes, that principles are a little flexible and not as rigid as science. Okay, because human behavior is not static or never static. So this is again a very important point that we have to remember before we move ahead. Now we are studying principles. I told you principles, general guidelines to govern managers' behavior or to help the managers, right? Now what is this word value and what is this word principle? So what is the basic difference between values and principles? Because again, that is something they could ask you in the CUET exam. So what is the exact difference between the word value and the word principle? So let us discuss that. Okay, so you can see here, I've already made the table for you guys. Okay, so you can see values, enduring beliefs and what is right or wrong, good or bad. So what are values? These are beliefs that helps you to know what is right, wrong, what is good, bad. ये आपकी values. Principles क्या है? Truths or guidelines. General truths or guidelines for decision making and action. Principles आपको बस एक guideline दे रही है कि how you should act. This is to values are to your enduring beliefs that this is right, this is wrong, this is good, this is bad. Okay, nature, internal and personal. सबकी values अलग अलग होती हैं. बोलते हैं ना यार तेरी values तो बहुत खराब है, तेरी values तो बहुत अच्छी हैं. But when you talk about principles, they are universal and general. Principle general होती है, सबके लिए almost same. Third, origin, derived from culture, society, family, religion. Now values derived from सबकी family की values अलग अलग होती हैं. Yes or no? So it is derived from culture, society, family and religion. हर religion में अलग values हैं, हर family में अलग values हैं, हर culture में, society में there is different values. So that is what we talk about. And then it is based on logic, observation and experimentation. Principles कैसे बनी? We experimented things, we observed things, then we concluded that this is what can happen. So then that becomes a principle. Okay, then next, purpose, guide individual behavior and attitude. So values helps an individual behavior and to change or shape his attitude, and principles guide managerial decisions and organizational practices. Yes or no, guys? Example देख लो. Honesty, integrity, empathy. If you are honest, you have integrity, you have empathy. These are your values. Principles, for example, these we will study in the chapter. For example, unity of command, discipline. So these are done after the careful experimentation and observation. Now next are the nature. I told you the two more words for nature, guys. Nature, or you can call it feature, or you can also call it characteristic. Nature, feature, characteristics of the principles of management. You can call it nature, you can call it feature, you can also call it characteristics. All three means the absolutely same. Okay. So the first feature of the principles of management, that is universal applicability. Universal applicability. When we call it as universally applicable, right, I'm not calling it rigid. I'm just saying that you can try to apply it in any type of organization, in all levels of organizations. That is what do we mean by universal or pervasive. When we talk about pervasive or universal applicability, we talk about that it can be applicable at all types and all levels of organization. can be applied to all the types of organizations. Profit organizations, not for profit organizations, right? Charity institute, anything, right? They can be applied. But their extent would vary. ठीक है, ऐसा नहीं है कि जितनी principles एक जगह यूज हो रही है उतनी उतनी होंगी, नहीं. But at least you can still apply them, right? For example, there is a small shop, so that requires, of course, principles to be applied, but not many principles because it is already a small organization. But if there is a large organization, so there are large complexities, so we can apply more principles. Yes or no? Okay. Next is that these are just general guidelines. Second is these are just general guidelines. These are, I have told you already that these are general managers. They give manager, they help the manager. Yes or no? Ready-made solutions नहीं है ये. These aren't ready-made solutions. These are not ready-made solutions. They are just there to help the managers. Okay, so these are the first two characteristics. So we can look at it here also. First is the universal applicability. It says management principles are applicable to all types of organizations, business or non-business, big or small. They are relevant to all managerial levels also, top, mid and operational. Then second is the general guidelines. They provide broad directions for decision making, not hard and fast rules. They just provide you the direction. They just help you. Managers must apply them with their judgment and discretion. Manager का भी एक अपनी skill होती है how to apply that particular principle. So that is why we call it a general guideline and not as rigid as science. Third is that it is formed by practice and experimentation. It is formed by practice and experimentation. We have already discussed this, that principles are evolved through analysis, through observation, right? Through real applicability, you will analyze something, then you will say, oh yeah, this is happening majority of the times. So yes, this is the principle I have derived. This is how Taylor and Fayol also did it, right? They first observed carefully. So that's why we are saying formed by practice and experimentation. Okay. Next, they are flexible. These principles are flexible. Managers can modify them according to the situation. Managers can modify them according to the situation. Managers could modify them according to the situation. That is what we are saying when we talk about nature, feature or characteristics, right? So these are the first four. You can see next two based on practice and experimentation. These principles are developed through observation, repeated experiments and real life experiences. And next, flexible principles are not rigid. They can be modified as per the needs of the situation of the manager. The allows managers to adopt in a dynamic business environment. Dynamic matlab which keeps on evolving, which keeps on changing, right? Fifth is the mainly behavior. Principle of management involves mainly behavior. Now what is that? Mainly behavior से मतलब है that it involves human behavior, right? Principles deals with human behavior which keeps on changing. Deals with the human behavior. हमारे principles deals with the human behavior. That is what we talk about when we say that it involves mainly behavior. Yes or no? Okay. Sixth is cause and effect relationship. And last but not the least, that the principles are contingent. The principles of management are, abhi I will explain, don't worry. Okay, so first please try to remember the names of the principles, very important. Universal applicability, general guidelines formed by practice and experimentation, flexible, mainly behavior, cause and effect relationship, and contingent. Okay, now you can see mainly behavioral. These principles deal with human behavior and aim to improve the relationship and coordination within the organization. So the relationship and coordination between the people, that is what we are trying to achieve. And that is why we are saying that it involves mainly behavior. Sixth is the cause and effect relationship. Management principle establish a link between managerial action and their outcomes. कि manager का action क्या है और उसका outcome क्या है. That is what we call a cause and effect relationship. Helps in predicting results of decisions. You can only predict, not exact prediction, of course. Prediction itself means you are just predicting. I can predict that अगर कोई मैच होता है तो इंडिया जीतेगा कोई और जीतेगा. But I can be wrong also. That is my prediction. So in the same way, they can help in predicting. Seventh is the contingent. Now this is the most important characteristic. Telling you separately, they can ask you separately what is this contingent all about. Okay, it means that the principles, their application depends on the particular situation. कि क्या situation है उसके हिसाब से will apply the principle. Contingent means you will apply your principles according to the situation. So you can see here these principles are not absolute truths. Their application depends on the situation, timing and organizational context. कि context क्या है, situation क्या है, उसके हिसाब से we apply our principles. I hope that is absolutely clear.
अब एग्जाम की तैयारी को और बेहतर करने के लिए हमारे चैनल को लाइक, शेयर और सब्सक्राइब करना ना भूलें।